Welcome back to Trust Your Journey. My name is Nelson Navarro, and I'm here to spread some enlightenment, spread some joy, and hopefully help you out with maybe a few troublesome thoughts or things that you don't really know how to solve, obstacles in your path, in your creative journey. To help you with that, on this episode of the show, we have Elijah, well known as one half of the grime DJ duo Elijah and Skilliam, and also a co-founder of the independent record label Butterz, who's released records from the likes of Flavor D, Royalty, and very recently have released the new Swindle record at the time of recording, which is like 1st of November right now. The Swindle record that came out last week is called The New World. It features collaborations from Nux, Joel Culpepper, Maverick Sabre, Green Tea Peng, Carla's on there, Koj Radical. It's a real creme de la creme of Black British music, in my opinion. Elijah is a really talented, not only DJ, curator, and artist manager, also working with youth music, and has previously worked with the Lighthouse in Brighton. So he's got a lot of experience in terms of how coming together as a community can impact and shape the culture that we work in. We mention a lot his yellow notes in this conversation. If you go on his Twitter, at Elijah, spelt with a 1 instead of an I, you can see what he's up to there in terms of posting thoughts every day and getting into a habit of doing that for 80 consecutive days, getting up, writing something down and thinking about what the world is, how we can change it, how we can shape it. Really got a lot of respect and time for this guy. Really grateful to have had a conversation. I think you're really going to enjoy what you hear. It's Trust Your Journey. Thank you so much for listening, and enjoy what is to come. Elijah, welcome to the show, G. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome, man. Thank you for having me.
Oh, mate, honestly, it's a pleasure. It's a real pleasure. It sounds like you've been hard at work this week already. I know we're recording on a Monday, the 1st of November, in fact, the first Monday of the month. How's it been going for you?
My work is like, it's easy work in terms of I enjoy everything I do. Yeah. So it's not hard to get me out of bed. It's not hard to like make me do the tasks that I need to do or like interact with the people that I work with. There's just a lot of it. That's what makes it hard. So.
I mean, you guys. It sounds like you guys are kind of coming off the back of a wicked success, because I know you guys have been working on a record for a real long time, putting a lot of love and care into it. And it's this new record by Swindle that's just dropped. Also, I didn't realize how involved Nux was going to be in the record, and one other collaborator as well. Who am I forgetting? I think there's 3 primary artists on the release.
So it's Koj Radical and Joel Culpepper. I guess they pop up the most.
And that's for me as a fan of the UK music culture at the moment, especially the UK black music culture at the moment. I'm seeing that and I'm thinking, man, this is royalty. This is royalty, man, on a record. How involved have you been like over the last, I don't know, the production process? Like how's that been for you?
So the production was done in June 2020. So they all went to Real World Studios in Bath. So Swindle sent out a text to all of his network, said, come down for a week, let's make records together, see what happens, just for some healing after, the opening up of the pandemic and all the Black Lives Matter conversations and the protests. Just wanted to get some music done. I was still isolating, so I wasn't actually able to be part of it in the room at the time, but obviously got to be part of the post-production, a lot of the layout of the ideas. After that, some of the art direction stuff. And I guess because it was done last June, we had a lot of time to sit and reflect on the music, what we want to do with it, how we want to put it out, the business behind it. And yeah, I know it's a year and some change later, but I feel like it was really good timing for it to come out now. Like it had been released during the height of lockdown. We would have missed a lot of promotional opportunities. We would have missed a lot of just using it as a thing to bring people back together in real life. So we've done some collaborations this week with YouTube, with PMC, the speaker company. So you have you can listen to the music in surround sound if you've got Apple Music. And one of the songs, Blow Your Trumpet, the instrumental was featured in Apple's keynote that went out a couple of weeks ago. So you had Tim Cook over a Swindle instrumental, which was sick. So And I'm a big Apple fan, so.
To the world, man. To the world. Yeah,
So
man.
there's a lot of things that like was, if we did it, if we put it out, like say like the couple of weeks after we made it, it just wouldn't have had that kind of impact. So I'm like properly grateful for like the timing and the layout of how it's come together.
Respect, man. No, I respect that. It's actually wonderful hearing the kind of levels that this music is going. Do you know what I mean? Because all of you are incredibly talented individuals and incredibly dedicated individuals, and seeing the fruits of that labour take it to such heights I find that extraordinarily inspiring for real. But in terms of what you're talking about, in terms of like you say, obviously you're a big Apple fan, right? And getting to a place now where it's like, I don't know I know that on this, the whole thing of the journey is like, sometimes you look around and madnesses are happening. And it's like, yo, like, when did we reach this? When did we reach these pinnacles where you look around and you're like, wow, like I'm collaborating with people that I idolize and brands that I idolize, and I'm in spaces where I'm looking around and I'm like, raw, like I've put myself in this space and I'm sitting around some really influential people, some really talented people, some really people that I really admire. Like, how is it feeling for you, man? Like Tim Cook walking out to a Swindle production, like, you know, how is that feeling?
Nowadays, it feels like everything is in the realms of possibility. So it's exciting, but at the same time, we live at the same time as Tim Cook. We live at the same time as Apple. So that's a possibility. There's nothing now where I really say, oh, I can't believe it. You know what I mean? I just see all this stuff all the time now where, you know, people say, oh, we live in a simulation, because they're just mind blown that some of these things happening. But I see like Little Sims in a Barack Obama playlist. I see, you know, when Kanye and Skepta was on stage together rapping. Like you've seen so much stuff that shouldn't happen by the definitions of what's happened before, but that's not how the world works. It's like constantly evolving, and yeah, like it's going to be normal for that kind of stuff to happen now. And to be honest, for the projects to work and be sustainable financially, we need injections of funding from bigger institutions. So it doesn't work as just, say, you know, putting it on streaming and just getting streams and that's it. It needs, you know, Apple, it needs a PMC, it needs brands and other kind of things to lift it up and put it into eyes and ears that might not get it. Like one of the songs is in the update of Grand Theft Auto. What more with Green Tea Pang, and it's been in there for months, like 6-7 months
ahead of the release.
Yeah, we just never said anything. We're just like, let's just see if people notice what it is. And then
that's devious, man. I like that.
I've been seeing the little tweets this week going, oh, that's what that song was. Like, I've been hearing it in Grand Theft Auto, but we've never flagged any attention to it. So just little things like that, it makes the projects work for everyone financially, and it gets the music into people's day to day. Like if you were playing GTA and not trying to find us, we found you.
It kind of allows that to just, you know, that thing of discovery, I think, is always a beautiful thing when it's the equivalent of like, instead of someone like coming up to you and trying to sell you this, I don't know, this ring or this jewelry or this bracelet, you have a shelf of stuff and someone's just minding their own business, flicking through, looking for something. All of a sudden they see something that they really like and they think is really beautiful. And they're like, this is awesome. I love this. I feel like I've discovered something. I feel like I own this before I even own it. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And many people are going to hear the music and never interact with us. You know, sometimes if I listen to like 6 music or something and you just hear the song come on, not everyone is going to go and search it out, or what's this, like who is this artist, or what label is on, who produced it. No one cares about. Not a lot of people will do that, but they still hear it and they still might enjoy it, and that's enough for me. That's like a good hook into someone not becoming a fan, but you know, the old method of like releasing an album and then going dark for a year and a half or 2 years or 3 years, or doing some sort of Adele kind of thing where you just pop up. For most artists, that's not going to work. And for us, like the place we're at in our life, it's not a place, it's not how we're going to get better. It's not how we're going to learn. It's not how we're going to interact with new people. I think that model is for emerging artists or for anyone that is trying to make a living off it. Trying to be as consistent as possible in terms of, or regular as possible, not just consistent, but regular. and trying out different things it makes you like really interesting to follow. Obviously, sometimes there might be like too much stuff, but hey, it's better than not enough most of the time.
It seems like there's a lot of role models for emerging artists that do, you know, portray that kind of behavior. You know, your Franks, Adele's, who else? Frank Ocean, I mean. And yeah, definitely a few other artists that I know that do go dark, you know, in between releases. And I think obviously it can be a bit misleading when people like that, of that caliber, they have a major label machine behind them and so on and so forth. And it's like, sometimes I feel like emerging artists are doing themselves a disservice by being like, yeah, cool, I can be like this mysterious person, like right from the get-go, when no one knows me, you know, when no one knows me and I'm still establishing myself, like you say, being an emerging artist.
It just depends what you want out of this thing, isn't it? It's like if you're trying to get better, or if you're trying to grow as an artist, or I don't want to say better, if you're trying to grow as an artist and expand what you do, and you're not even creating, because some people will just not create for extended periods of time, which I find crazy, then you're not growing. So I can understand when someone doesn't want to put out music all the time, doesn't want to be tweeting or TikToking all the time. Fair enough. But there's going to be limitations in terms of, for most people, in terms of your audience building, in terms of like anything really. If you only put out, if you're lucky enough to just put out 1 or 2 songs a year and be able to make a living, then you are in the upper echelons of the 1%. But I don't really work in that reality. I kind of try and make the odds work in your favour a bit more than being in the upper 1%, because even in whatever I do, I'm not in the upper 1% of it. I'm in the 1%, I guess, because I earn a living through music. So that is already a 1% thing.
Yeah.
And a decent living through in that bit is in that slight upper. But I couldn't do less than I do and still pay for my groceries.
Yeah, trust, man. Trust. Do we want to be at Aldi or Waitrose, I guess? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so my house is an Aldi house at the moment.
Yeah.
And I could live like that for the rest of my life. It's fine, look, like the fake Pringles.
Yeah.
But it's not that. There's some of the things, obviously, like what happened last year, you're not going to be in your control. So you want to have, you know, backup and reserves and other things going on in other places. So if this thing goes down, then you can pivot. And I think the last few years is people seeing my ability to pivot not even more than, but I just do it.
Just the ability, yeah. I mean,
I've got the ability.
Speak on that, G. Like how, like obviously, I mean, I think a lot of us have pivoted, even if it's not necessarily into a direction that we wanted over that whole time. Like, how are you steering your ship? Because I've seen it. I've been from the outside anyway. I've been seeing, you know what I mean, the Twitters and the yellow notes, which I'm loving, by the way. I'm really loving. And maybe actually you can explain that process to the listeners as well. Maybe people who aren't aware, because I think it's a real benefit for anyone in the music industry, definitely.
I guess the confusion about like what I do is I'm an artist, effectively, but then I'm not a frontline artist. I'm not putting out music under the name Elijah and promoting stuff and, you know, have a radio show or on television or anything. But I work behind the scenes on a label called Butterz. I DJ with a partner called Skilliam, and we run that company together, Butterz, and we manage Flavor D, Swindle, DJ Q and Roll T together. So all of their music, no matter where it comes out, if it comes out on their own labels or hospital or whatever, we work behind the scenes on those projects. So I do like many things, and then, you know, a few years ago I worked with Lighthouse and did kind of curation and art and exhibitions and stuff like that. And now work with youth music, that kind of getting money in people's hands to deliver projects. So there's quite a few different strands, and the yellow notes is what I learned through doing all of those things. So sometimes people might only know my work as like a grime DJ for a period of time, and then they're like, what do you know about this stuff? But I've been doing all these stuff kind of all at the same time, effectively. but my artist but my artist profile has only spoken about, music or grime or MCs and stuff. And now I've tried to open it out and broadly speak about all the work I do together in one place. And just be more transparent, basically. Like, I think before I wasn't transparent. I was more. It wasn't to not be transparent. It was just because the focus of my social media was the artistic production. Whereas now, the last few months, I've just been speaking about what it's like to earn a living in art and music sustainably, and any help I can be, whether that's little insights into like projects or just answering questions. To be honest, like most of the questions people ask me are the same or bordering on the same things, so I can answer them publicly instead of having to do it individually like hundreds of times.
It seems like there's a lot of speculation that you're doing in these, in a sense.
What do you mean?
In the sense of maybe speculation's not necessarily as accurate as I can get when I say that. Maybe imagination maybe is a better phrase in terms of imagining from futurist thinking, right? In terms of this is where we are. Look around me right now. This is what I'm seeing. Like you're saying, from all these different. You've been DJing for ages. You've been managing artists for ages. More recently, you've been working. You've been working with government organisations. You've been working funding projects for emerging artists, and all the things that entails. And, alongside living as a human and creating music as a human. And being a human, right? And then as you're looking around, this is my kind of my interpretation of like how I see it. It's like looking around and thinking, well, why is this? Like walking into a house and being like, well, this doesn't really make sense. You know what I'm saying? This layout doesn't really make sense. So if in my head I'm imagining, I'm talking from your perspective now. Like I'm imagining, why can't we move the sofa over there? Do you know what I mean? Because then the light from the window shines in a little bit better, and it kind of like fills you with a bit more sense of well-being. Or like, why don't we have why is this doormat is looking a bit clapped? Why don't we get a new one, maybe with a different kind of fabric, and then actually, your shoes aren't tracking dirt in. These small incremental changes. You see, I'm being metaphorical, right? And it's like these small incremental changes and I feel like that's what I see you proposing a lot on Twitter, and these things that. The quote-unquote common sense, that it's like when you take a step back and you kind of address, like a lot of us have been over this lockdown, and you address like, right, okay, cool, so I've been in this industry for however long, and this is applicable to people outside of the music industry as well. I've been in this industry for hella long, and now I'm not in any industry almost, because it's like there's so much downtime. So I've got this unheralded amount of free time where I can look around and be like, questioning like, oh wait, is this really the best way to do things? Is the way I've been doing things the best way to do things? Do you see what I'm saying?
That's kind of how I think about things. I don't know if you're like familiar with the term like first principles.
No, I'm not.
So kind of work with the idea that if you were starting today, how would you make it, rather than basing it on what already exists. So for example, if you were making a car, would you make it with like how it's been historically made over the last 100 years, or would you make it with the technology and information that you have today? You would obviously make it with the technology and information that you have today. Like someone starting a label now doesn't have to think about, unless they want to, think about vinyl pressing and record shops and radio and all this kind of stuff, especially if you didn't grow up on that culture. Like you can just do what serves your art best in 2021, 2022. And that's going to have a very, very different makeup to the way I might think about music. And that's good. So I shouldn't give you advice on how to do that. I think I would only give you advice on how to think about how to do your own thing rather than how to do it. So I'm trying to like not give prescriptive solutions for people, because you will think about it in a different way to what I will, and that's going to be your competitive edge. That's what's going to be the most interesting. Like people will interpret things that I say in ways that I can't even imagine, and that's what makes it interesting to me. That's what's like, I write that way deliberately, to see what happens. So like people will respond back and they say, "Oh, I'm going to take this idea and run with it." Like they're stealing something from me. I'm like, no, that's the idea. Like take the principles of what is there, and then whatever your idea is yours. It's not mine. Like I might have sparked something, but it's not my ideas. My ideas are going to be different by nature of it being me. That's fine. That's why I can show you my hand. I don't think this thing is like needs to be a secret. Like this thing is about execution of ideas rather than, like the old music industry, or like this is not music specific, but it'll be like hide your work. I'll put my hand over it so you can't see what I'm doing. That
take the labels off your records, innit?
Yeah, that would be the advantage. Whereas like now I can just show you everything I'm doing, and it wouldn't mean that you could just walk in and do it. That's not really the point. And that's probably the best kind of competitive edge to have. Like, it's like a company giving away all their patents. You can give, whatever.
Open source software and whatnot.
You can Tesla can give away all the patents and it doesn't have any impact on their business model because their advantage is in their engineers or in their execution. So someone having the same information as Swindle doesn't make two Swindle. There's only one. Someone having the same information as Flavor D, it doesn't replicate a Flavor D. It just doesn't. And that's where it's interesting for me.
I think it's almost like this trend that I see in the workplace, like people starting like results-only work environments, where it's like, come in whatever time you want. Like, we don't care. Like, you can come in at like 6 p.m. if you want and work till 11. Bearing in mind, certain provisos are met, that you attend certain meetings, what have you. What we really care about is you achieving the result that we require. Do you know what I mean? Which is leadership, really. Leadership is coordinating people and facilitating them reaching the end goal that the leader is set to achieve, right? Or that the community is set to achieve, really. It shouldn't really be about the leader is really a facilitator in my mind. And what you're talking about is like you can show the path. Do you know what I'm saying? You can show the path. You can show, this is how I got there. Do you know what I mean? Here's how to make a kick drum. Here, like YouTube tutorials, what have you. Here's how to make like when producers give away their sound kits. Do you know what I mean? Like Monty Booker, if you've ever come across him, one of my favorite producers ever. I think he's similar to Swindle in the way that there's so many people who have a sonic footprint. And you hear something and it's audible because you recognise that. I think Jevon is a person in the UK that does that as well. A sonic footprint, and then those people say, okay, cool, look, here's my sounds, take them here, use it. Like you say, it's not gonna lead to someone else sounding exactly the same like me. You might get some imitations and some replicas, and some people say, like, it's a form of flattery. It's a form of admiration. I think more than flattery. I think I like your sound so much that I wanna make it myself. I wanna see what happens. When people follow that train of thought for long enough, humans don't exist in a vacuum. We don't exist in just, I like you, and that's the only influence on my entire life. We're surrounded by stuff, bro. Like, we're surrounded by, like you might like Skrillex, and you might also like Bon Iver, and you might also like FKA Twigs, and it's like you might also like Lenny Kravitz. Like, so it's like, just because you really admire one type of artist, I think people kind of maybe go into the misrepresentation. It's like when I show my hand, when I give stuff away, that all of a sudden it's like their special sauce is like evaporated. Like, that is scarce, when actually it's like a fountain, bruv. Like, it's coming from you all the time, every day. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like even with the notes that I put out, it's like, they're not good every day, and maybe that's part of like demystifying like what good work actually is. It's like you're not going to be a 9 every day. That's the point. Like, the actual ability to do it every day is what I think is like part of the skill, the discipline, turning up every day, answering questions, and doing it I did it for 80 days in a row. Kind of whatever, prove my point. That can be done. But then next year I'm going to do every day for 365 days. Just as a mental challenge for myself, and level it up in terms of like broader ideas, things that obviously this has been mainly from a music perspective, but things that I think might help people in broader life, and obviously that impacts creative too, right? So I've got to try and and push out into topics that people might not expect. But again, that's what makes it interesting for me too. And hopefully the content of what I'm putting out there, people understand how it then connects to the creative. And people understand, oh, like this is how you think. Okay, now I understand why, Butterz is like this, or why you manage in this way, or why you don't do certain things. Like it become more apparent. I think before my rhetoric or whatever, it was framed as being independent, just do your thing by yourself and fuck the man. It's like, that's not really what I'm about. But I think over the 365 days, people might hopefully, like if I write it well enough, be able to string together like what my worldview is. And I'll put out some interesting content, and hopefully with other partners and friends and ways of working, you get to see sides of people that you can't really communicate in music well. But we'll see how it goes.
How do you feel about having set yourself that challenge now? Obviously, where are we at? Well, 1st November, so obviously 2 years, and I'm assuming it will be 1st of January, 31st of December, right?
That's right.
So how are you feeling now in knowing that that's something you're going to be pursuing over next year? Now knowing now that, because I'm assuming you're taking a break then from now.
Yeah, so I've taken a break. I won't do any posts for November and December. But I'm only taking a break so I can be fully committed to the projects that I'm already signed up for. So this daily thing came out randomly. It wasn't something that I architected. It was just something that I started and then rolled on. And then when I got a bit of time to think about it, I was like, okay, this can be a thing. And it magnetized a lot of positive opportunities. So I thought, okay, well, let me just do it properly. Let me take some time and consider the impact of the words I'm putting out there every day a bit more, and build something that people just don't expect. I think all the suggestions I've had for this over the last 80 days have been ideas that I don't want to do, and that's good too. It's good that people are thinking about this thing in a way I'm completely not thinking about it. So hopefully all of the work and stuff I put out will be like a bit of not a surprise, but it'll be like, oh, okay, I didn't see it going this way. Oh, okay, like is this what this is becoming? Rather than like, obviously the most common message I get is you need to put all of these in a book. and every time I see it, I just go, okay, cool. This is what you think this is, but it's not a book. It's not that kind of thing. This what we're doing is shooting at a moving target. And if you put it in a book, it's already antiquated because the world is changing so fast. So hopefully, there's going to be things that will be timeless, but there's going to be things that might work in that 30-day period. There's going to be reflections that I might feel on the 22nd of April that I don't feel on the 22nd of September. And I think it's nice to capture them. Like if anyone that's ever written like a diary or written notes or can kind of look back on things that they've said or ambitions that they've had, because so much of my stuff is on the internet. I can go back and read an interview I've done in 2011 or watch stuff that I filmed in 2010. So I'm more mindful now of what I'm saying about the future, because I've seen the future that I was talking about 10 years ago happen. So I can look at 2011 me talking about the what ifs of the grime scene, and many of those what ifs happen. Now that I think with grime, everything that most people would want it to happen has happened in some form or fashion. And the next decade, I've got a thread about this, the future of Black British music, an optimistic future of Black British music. All of the things that could possibly happen. And some just seem really obvious. And then some are a bit what? Why is a rapper going to own a football club?
I know a rapper that owns a football club. I know one.
There you go. But I mean, in the National League.
Ooh, yo.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Scale it up. Why not?
Yeah, it's not even why not. It's just I can see a route to that happening.
Yeah, for
today.
Sure. The links are all
there. In 2021,
the links are all there.
2031, it's where are these clubs going to get their financing from? You know, the billionaires have the Premiership clubs. The next level down have the National League clubs. Who are going to be the next, you know, wealthy people that would be funding these kind of things? How do people connect in the community? Is through sport. It's through music, and the most recognisable people in sport and music from the UK usually, black people from ends, basically. So,
yeah, man.
Yeah, and in a decade's time, when some of the people that are 28 now and have been on 200 grand a week at a Premiership club, what are they going to do? They're not all going to be pundits on Match of the Day. No. They're going to be the entrepreneurs. They're going to be people funding the next wave of culture.
I think it's like as well because we're seeing, from my perspective, I'm seeing through music, through entertainment, like this democratization or maybe redistribution of serious levels of wealth. Because, like you say, bruv, black people from ends are getting massive platforms to earn money and also to gather influence, to gather fame, but all of those three things are very crucial because you can have some without having the other, basically. You can have money, have no fame, no influence. You can have fame, you can have no influence, no money. I'd pay a lot of attention to the American sphere of wealthy rappers because I think it's very well documented over there. Like you say about how things are documented. I know we've had a conversation about this, about the responsibility of the curator and a responsibility to accurately, to be archiving things and to be showing things to the world because we have these opinions that may later on turn into something that's incredible. And it's like, okay, cool, this is the path we're charting this journey. And in terms of like the history, bruv, like, looking back at the 90s, the noughties, where you had people entering into music who were broke from ends and left music now with essentially empires, essentially corporations, massive money factories, money generators. And it's like, where's that money going to go? Do you know what I'm saying? And as time goes on, it seems like it's becoming more and more accessible as the wealth as the global, global potential wealth, the potential wealth of the whole civilization of humanity is increasing all the time because we're finding more and more ways to create wealth, to distribute wealth, to trade, to communicate with each other, to build new things, to create technology that then allows us to build new things. And it's this kind of acceleration of all this stuff that's happening. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's mad. It's almost like how the population's increasing, right? And how
the global population.
Yeah, the global population, right? So it's like the more the population increases, obviously the more resources we require, the more we consume. And then at the same time, it's not just a linear thing. It's not just like, oh, there's more people, so we need more food. It's like it starts going logarithmic because you've got a larger population density. Communities start getting bigger. Communities start getting more diverse, which impacts things. Do you know what I'm saying? There's more money, and there's also more people with less money, and there's more people with more money. There's more people getting richer, there's more people getting poorer, there's more people dying, there's more people being born. And all of these things start to have impacts on the society and on the culture. So, I don't know. It's interesting, G, because you're a person that makes a lot of predictions and a lot of...
I wouldn't even call them predictions. They're more like possibilities. And I think a lot of the way we write about stuff or write about culture is... or a lot of people that are in it, they talk about it as if it's going to stay the same. So if people talk about, oh, my album is coming out in July 2022 and now it's November, they'll talk about music as if it's just that nothing is going to happen or culture's not going to change or there's not going to be an event that moves society. So imagine that those people that made records before the pandemic and then just released them as if nothing was happening. It just felt weird because it was just it's just tone deaf, and
the awareness.
And in the future, now that we know what a pandemic looks like and feels like, another one can happen that could be worse. That's in the realms of possibility now, right? We know what a London terrorist attack feels like. We know what a New York terrorist attack feels like. We don't really know what like a humanitarian crisis looks like in Sunderland. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know how the country would react because we haven't experienced it yet. But those are the things in the realms of possibility. You know, sometimes we see these things about floods in the UK, and because of where I live, I'm just completely disconnected from it. It doesn't feel like real to me, it's just stuff on the television. But then to someone else, it feels like their world is ending. And I guess like when I'm writing these things, it's in consideration of, hey, maybe, you know, the climate is going to change completely. Something that's completely unrecognizable to what we're used to today, or we've historically been used to. But it doesn't mean that football isn't going to stop. Like clearly, if we can play football during the pandemic, football isn't going to stop because of climate. No matter what. Culture's not going to stop if we're locked indoors. We experience that. And when people are able to get back out, we're going to see what happens. I don't know, just all possibilities are interesting to me, and I work with the idea that nothing is going to stay the same, and that is exciting to me. Like, that's the same reason, like, you know, I started out in the grime scene, and the reason that existed technologically was because of pirate radio. And now that's not a thing anymore. People are always like, oh, what is grime? Like, where is the next grime thing? It's like the thing that created it, incubated it in the first place, is no longer the center of the universe or for a group of people. So whatever we do now, it's just, it might be sonically in the same space, but it's not that same thing. And it's fine. Like, I'm comfortable with that. That's why you can't, it's like, it's very difficult to, you know, when someone says about real something, well, you can't make real funk or real soul without this, or you can't make real grime without this. It's like, bro, like, what is real? Like, everything is new. Everything.
Trust your journey. Trust your journey. Trust your journey.
How do you view what's happening in the UK space with drill and the popularization of drill right now, in terms of like the continuation of the spirit of grime music? How do you view that?
I don't know. I just think it's not the same, but music, especially British music, is based on incentives, right? So if a trend is happening, you make music in trend so you can get heard. Like, there's people that are making drill now that could be any kind of artist that they wanted to be if they wanted to do something else, but they're choosing to do that so they can be listened to. And grime was like that, UK funky was like that, garage was like that. That might not be their core passion. It's just the way that you use, that's the vessel you use to get heard. You know, in terms of the popularization of drill, it's just like, if you were using it as a comparison to grime, like, grime was like based in a club, as a club culture. And drill is like more of a listening, YouTube visual culture. It's a completely different thing. It's not really like, it's not something I really listen to be honest. Like, it's not really my cup of tea musically. But I respect it as an art form, and I respect like anything that gets people creative and makes people excited about linking up and doing stuff together. Like, I'm always pro. It's funny, like with drill in particular, you know, if you are more like historically known for kind of a particular scene, you're always seen as like the, you know, you might not like that or support it or think it's rubbish or something. But I don't really think anything is bad. I don't really think about it that much. There's going to be things I like, things that I don't, but I don't judge the whole thing as a unit, because I didn't think that was helpful in grime, so I wouldn't do that to drill.
It's I feel like I'm seeing a lot of parallels in terms of how I'm seeing something manifest and grow and become popular, in terms of how I think less of a comparison. I'm seeing it more as like it feels like a continuation of a single thread in a way, or maybe a divergence of a certain thread. Because I think when I'm looking at drill, it's like I'm seeing a predominantly young black culture or subculture, I don't know, just call it a culture, become widely popularized and also kind of regarded and frowned upon as like, it's violent, it's aggressive, it's negative for my suburban white kids, and they're doing it anyway, you know. And it's interesting because I'm liking how you frame grime around how crucial the how crucial the role of pirate radio is into the incubation, I think is the word you use, you know, the incubation of grime, and I guess also the proliferation of grime, because that was the transmission medium. And right now we're looking at, I think the reason I'm talking about this is because when you mentioned the idea of first principles, this is what I kind of feel like drill is doing, is it's taking this spirit that resulted and manifested as grime music in our history, in our British musical history, our Black British musical history. And it's now that same mindset, that same attitude, that same path, I feel like is manifesting in today as drill, because the methods of production, you got people just rocking up with cameras, you got that kind of equipment, that level of equipment, that level of visual production. You got black youths in ends who have mad camera equipment, you know? You got people with mad studios in their bedrooms, like of serious kind of quality, you know? And everyone has access to a YouTube channel, quote unquote everyone, you know? So many people have access to the internet, so many people have access to a free video software that they can download, so many people, and there's almost like this precedent that's been set before, definitely I think by grime, in the Black British identity of music, in terms of the hood video, which is like one of the most popular tropes I think in drill right now. Do you know what I'm saying? Of let's get everybody from ends, let's all go round the block, you know, everyone come through, do your thing, we're going to be popping off, someone's going to have the portable speaker, and we're going to, even things like that, do you know what I'm saying? Even things of a portable Bluetooth speaker, which is new, right? In this context.
Yeah, but that didn't happen in grime because it was grime. It just happened because of the technology being available at the time.
Precisely.
So that's what's mad. It's like we have this situation where in the early 2000s, everyone got Fruity Loops and these kind of production software for the first time. Yeah. And it democratized it at one level. And now we're seeing like 10 years or 15 years of democratization of music production in general. So there's a lot of people that might not have been magnetized to music or didn't feel like music was an option for them creatively, that now know for certain. And yeah, grime does inspire that. Grime does it like make someone go, right, I could do that. And that's a beautiful thing. And the same with drill, when people go, right, is that how you pound off a tune? Yeah, cool. And they go and approach it in their own way. It's sick, man. It's like really nice to see. And to be honest, when you have, like, I mean, some of my work is like entry points, right? And if drill is your entry point to being an artist or considering yourself something more than someone else is telling you that you are, it's a great thing. It's a great thing for someone maybe that is on the fringes of society to be able to say, man, I'm an artist, or I've got an imagination and I'm able to display it, or I can make something with my hands. It's like being a craftsman, you know what I'm saying? Like you knowing that you can make something out of nothing, it's a superpower. And like, you can't underestimate like the impact of these things psychologically on people. Like once you know that you can like roll up a tune, or you can get information out of a computer, or you can put your ideas down and create something, like even if like I'm talking about money, if it just makes something, it gives people a confidence that there's not many other things that can do that.
I think we're seeing that all the time in our line of work, specifically is working with young people. I see that all the time in terms of allowing someone to feel and believe, more importantly believe, feeling it for the first time, and then it developing into a belief of, oh, I can shape my reality and I can control my environment. In the base level of, I can find an instrumental in this context, right? I can find an instrumental on YouTube, and an hour or two later have created a song. I've created a record and a song, you know? And I can play that back. And now all of a sudden, when I play that to people, versus just me playing them strictly the instrumental, I can play that to my friends, I can play that to my homies. Maybe I'm even going to a show and I'm doing that. And whereas previously, before maybe, and I'm talking about this from the perspective of maybe a young person, a disenfranchised young person who looks around and is like, what am I going to do in life? Like, what impact do I have in life? You know, who listens to me? Even just as a person in my wider society, who cares about what I have to say? What impact am I really going to have on my environment? Like, my environment is something that happens to me. And then all of a sudden, when they go through this process of realizing, like, rah, when I can make tunes and now everyone's dancing. No one was dancing before, and then I put on my tune and now people are singing the words and people are coming up to me and saying, oh, I love what you're doing, like, I admire you. Do you know what I'm saying? And for a lot of people who maybe are getting constantly told all these, constantly reading all these signals from society that like, oh, I'm not wanted, I'm not expected to be in anywhere good, you know? I'm expected to get kicked out of my classroom. I'm expected to mess about. I'm expected to be naughty. I'm expected to go and do crime. I'm expected to go and do drillings. I'm expected to go and, you know, rob people up. I'm expected to go and trap out somewhere. All of a sudden, like, the amount of people that are seeing music and being like, rah, like, as therapy or as an empowerment tool. Some people actually use it as a whole vehicle to get out of the streets. Calm. That's beautiful. And then some people use it as a vehicle of actually getting out of their mind, getting out of the cage that they've put around themselves in their mind, that they've built, having seen this world around them and being like, oh, okay, I guess this is where I belong then. Do you see where I'm coming from there?
Yeah, like for me, it was like an escape of being seen as like average. And that has its own kind of trappings. It's like, oh, well, you're going to school, college, uni, and just get a job, and nothing else was expected of anyone teaching me. It's like, well, you're just an average student, get average grades, you're going to have an average job, have an average life. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you set out to do. But I knew that why I was producing average results in education is because I wasn't inspired. And that, like, I think I would have got better grades if like what was put in front of me motivated me. Or I knew how to learn, like what kind of learning gets into my head. Like, I used to think that I was bad at maths because I just didn't get good results at maths, or I wasn't taking it in. And now I know it's because it was the way I was taught, or I couldn't learn things in certain ways. But now I know how I can take in information. It's not held me back as an adult. I didn't know that until I was in my mid-20s. And a lot of people, they might never discover how they learn best. And it's such a shame, like, because I've had to learn so much independently. I found my own way of like getting information in, and you know what to disregard. And it's hard as well, like when you have to, as an adult, dissect things that you were taught as a child or taught even as a young adult that are just like fundamentally don't serve you or not true. You know, like if you went to school in the 90s, you still would have been told that Christopher Columbus discovered America. You know what I mean? And so there's something really basic, but you have to like unlearn things like that, or you have to question, you know, why you were told it in this way. You have to, you know, you have to engage with certain parts of your belief system that don't serve you anymore. And I've been lucky enough to have the headspace to be able to do that in my day-to-day work, you know, doing music and working with, you know, Flavor D and Swindle and Skillium, and having alternative perspectives through travel, through dealing with different artists, through, you know, yeah, all the kind of work that I do that challenges that. So that's kind of what the daily things will go into a bit more when I'm kind of going through all the things that I've learned not to be true, that people still say today. And it doesn't matter if you believe something to be true sometimes, or even if it is true, but if it doesn't serve you, then like analysing your engagement with it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Don't you think there's a bit of an interesting reaction that happens when you're going through sorting and I think unpacking is a word that gets used a lot, things in your life that you kind of realize to be false? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, as in putting yourself in a new position that you weren't before as a result of that.
I know why I'm here today. Like, I know I'm here because, you know, if you want to extrapolate it, some people enslaved elder generations, put them in Jamaica. One of my great-great-grandparents was a refugee fleeing Syria, went to Jamaica, met my great-great-granddad, had kids, you know, in Jamaica. Then they had kids, and then they had my grandma. My grandma had my mum, moved to England, left my mum in Jamaica. Then my mum came here, and after whatever, 15 years, had me. I know why I'm in England. I know why, you know, my grandma is a Catholic. She would have been something else if she was born at a different time. I know why I'm in East London. Like, that's just where, like, They came here, they came to Hackney. So I'm just still like close to here now. And there's no mystery of how I got here. So going forward, it's like, okay, now I know all that, at least. I can kind of dissect, okay, why am I a Catholic? Why did I go Catholic school? Oh, it's because of that. Okay. Why do we believe this? Why do we eat this? Like, why is this tradition? Like, why is Christmas on this day? I mean, like all these questions, and I enjoy that. Not even just to challenge it and say, oh, this is trash, or this, I believe in this instead of that. It's more like I just know why I believe it, or I know why it's that way. And it's made me challenge a lot of things in my personal life, down to like what I eat. You know, like I always talk about hydration on Twitter and on Instagram, just like, why are you coming on this app before you had a glass of water and all this kind of stuff. And it's not the typical stuff an artist says, but it's true. It's like you're engaging with something that is like highly addictive before you've even like had any kind of moisture or any hydration in your body. But people don't really say it that way. You it's just become normal. But the only reason it's become normal is because you decided now to put the computer in the bed with you when you go to sleep and then look at it first thing. But that, again, if you extrapolate this in history, in the past, let's just say 6,000 years, it's only in the last 10 that people would have done that. So we are dealing with these things for the first time. I know that sounds like a bit over the top sometimes with the way I think about things, but
no, you know what? I really think that's the kind of thinking that brings us to new places and new realizations. Because although maybe we were previously putting stuff in the bed that is a distraction, you know, maybe people reading a book before they go to bed, and then they wake up and the first thing they do is read the book. Do you know what I'm saying? And at the same time, that has its own knock-on effects, you know, positive and negative, just as the smartphone in the bed has its own effects, positive and negative. I think it's like learning to identify the variances and, okay, cool, this new stuff is happening. Like people are getting too much blue light in their eyes and people's sleep patterns are being affected. And then what happens epigenetically a couple generations down the line when you've got a bunch of human beings that have been exposing their eyes to blue light like non-stop. Like what's that gonna manifest in like 3 or 4 generations time as that continues and probably likely accelerates? Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, it's like comes down to like what we accept as normal. Like there is, like, I mean, Swindle's quite album, No More Normal. It's like there isn't a normal, especially like if you've moved around. Like I've travelled extensively, and you can see why people do things a certain way in a certain place. They eat different things, they drink in a different way, they organise in different ways because of their environment. So normal is relative, and we live in a country where most of our choices become our normal rather than there being a normal. There isn't an English default for anything. Like people can't even agree what a full English breakfast is or what a Sunday roast is. So the normal is down to choices that we make for ourselves. So normal is individual.
It's perspective based. That's how kind of view it. It's like, I think of divorcing yourself from shoulds and woulds, you know, divorcing yourself from this is what I ought to be doing because it's what I feel like I'm expected to do, kind of divorcing yourself from the outside normal, creating yourself your own internalized normal that's based on what you care about. That's like, for example, like obviously you mentioned like going to Catholic school. You mentioned okay, cool, what do we eat? Do you know what I mean? Like that, you know, in some cultures, things are very, very normal. In other cultures, you turn up and I'm the outlier here. I'm the anomaly, you know? And then for some people, that in itself is normal. If I want to be meta about it, for some people, framing themselves as the misfit is their normal. It's like, oh, I'm used to this. You know, I'm accustomed to this. This is what is convention for me. Me showing up in a space and me being the only insert whatever here, you know? And then it's like, okay, cool. Well, then how is that benefiting you? Is that benefiting you? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, how is your normal? How is your perspective and framing of convention, of normal? How is that supporting your development? How is that bringing joy into your life? How is that creating joy for yourself? How is that setting yourself up for greatness?
Exactly. Like the only reason I'm like this is because that's what makes me happy. Like this is what makes me settled. Like before, if I was just asking these questions and then not answering them or not finding the kind of roots to solving some of the problems that I have or, you know, questions I want to ask, then I wouldn't be happy. but this is what makes me happy, is the pursuit of those things. So, the last, I'd say 5 years maybe. Even through that period, I was at Lighthouse, so that was 2017. So I guess from 2016 to today, I've kind of just engaged with these questions a lot more. And, when you're thinking about who you work with and, what you do, what you listen to, who you spend time with, especially through the pandemic and up to now, choices become easier to make. They're not actually getting harder. Like, that's just why, I don't want to manage any new people. It's the reason that I can be generous in a lot of ways, like with work or with time, but then at the same time, I can be very private. Like, no one knows anything about me beyond what I share as Elijah, the DJ person. I don't really talk about my personal life at all. But these are choices, and these are the things that make me happy. So I think if we extrapolate and listen to the future, there isn't like a place where I land and I'm going, okay, well, I've completed this now. I've clocked life. I've not clocked the game of life. It's just like a continuous, now I've learned about this. Now it's opening up this window in terms of like how to think about the world in a different way. And then what happens when like we're in the metaverse, or when AI is everywhere, or when, like you're talking about wealth being centralized, like what happens when wealth is centralized at a completely a higher level than today? What happens when there's trillionaires instead of billionaires? What happens when, no one owns their house anymore, and we're just renting? And do these kind of questions, and being able to be happy in spite of all of these changes, or like what happens if my health isn't good? I can still know that I spend a lot of time in my life being able to kind of think through these things and talk about these things with people, and use my art and my day job and my friends and family to bounce these things off. That's what's made me happy.
Kind of that concept of mastery, of mastering life, in a sense of things. Maybe I think some people think like, oh, why isn't it getting easier? Like when they're making anything, when they're making music, when they're doing art, when they're learning to play, when a skill, when they're learning a language. It's like, oh, I thought it was gonna get easier. And that's not how mastery works. Mastery isn't about it getting easier. Mastery is about when what you were doing before gets easier, and then you greeting the challenges that continue to come, and keeping and persisting with the development of your skills, persisting with the development of your knowledge. Because really the people who stick around and persist at whatever they're pursuing tend to be the ones that find success, because you're the ones that put in the most time. You're the ones that stay dedicated to the pursuit of, or continuing the pursuit of knowledge, about what else is there, how else can I find, how else can I do this? How else can I, what's going to change around me, and how is that going to impact me?
Exactly. When people say like I've mastered something, that means they usually don't understand it. And if you've mastered anything at our young ages, then it's too easy. It wasn't even something worth mastering. Yeah.
Or are you stopping yourself short as well? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you saying, okay, cool, yeah, that's done, and also, and maybe leaving, and there's nothing wrong with this as well, leaving stones unturned. I actually really believe in leaving stones unturned, because, bruv, there's like, A, there's so many stones, and B, there's so many people to turn them. Do you know what I mean? Leave stones unturned, that's fine. Like, turn the stones that you actually care about. Like, turn the stones that you're like, I'm filled with a desire to go and find, what happens when I do this? What happens when I push this button? What happens when I go and have this conversation? What happens if I do something every single day? What happens if I just tell this random person on the street to fuck themselves? Got like random stuff that you're like, I want to know the results and consequences of these actions, and you'll find out, and you'll take things away, and then you'll go and do it again. People who make music for the longest, people who are passionate about music, often start doing music and any other creative skill because it's amazingly fun, and maybe don't think about a career initially. I'm a firm believer of, if you want to do something for money, when you want to do something for money and make a career out of it, start doing it for free first. And if you've already started doing it for free, then you might end up making a lot of money from it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's kind of how I started in grime anyway. Like there wasn't a career there wasn't like some path that you could follow to earning a living. It was made up. That's why it's funny now when I see people say, you know, they want to be a DJ or they want to do some kind of obscure niche music and be a producer, DJ type person. Again, historically, people have only lived like this for 30 years at best, and a very small kind of group of people. But where it feels as if that's how it's always been, and it just hasn't. And recorded music only goes back 100 years. Electronic music only goes back 35 years. So how many people in 35 years have made a career out of it? You know what I mean? Yeah. Carpentry has been going on for 3,000. and those are the busiest people I know.
Yeah, man. Industrious.
Yeah, like people that, you know, and that's creative work too. So, but I guess like my broader point is, you know, when we talk about, you know, artistic careers, this is a new thing. And we can't underestimate what we're demanding out of the world when we say, I want to be an artist, I want to live from it, and I want to, you know, do it forever. So who has been able to do that?
Yeah, man.
And is that the only way to be creative in your life? Like, I think I would have, even if I just DJ'd all the time, it would make me a worse DJ. Like, the fact that I'm doing all this other stuff makes me approach it in a completely different way than if I was just living in clubs and only spent all my time in that environment. That's why I stopped, like, doing it so ferociously. Because before I was doing sets in clubs around the world every week. But it's not that it doesn't become a challenge. It's just that the challenge only becomes physical, not mental. It's like, how many places can you get to? And
numbers, you know?
Yeah, numbers. How many tickets can you sell? Like all these kind of questions, rather than it being like, you're not challenged by ideas. You're like, okay, what happens if I try this idea that way?
Yeah, qualitative, you know?
Yeah. But now hopefully what happens in my life is that, you know, I have 100 projects. Some will be music, some will be not music, some will be life projects, some will be personal development, some will be, you know, private, some will be, you know, things that are daily, something that's recognizable by the world. Some are for family, some things are, like, I'm just scanning a lot of family photos at the moment. Some will be for other people, some will be, you know, 50 of them will not work at all. And others will just be things that I can pass down to other generations, you know what I mean?
Legacy, I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it's a legacy. It's just more like, I didn't grow up with male influences. So I was raised by women. I didn't have a dad. And not many other strong day-to-day male role models. So if I'm able to be that for another generation, that would be something I didn't have. And now I know, I think I know what I missed, but I know what I might be able to be of value, maybe compared to, you know, what I had.
Right and a wrong in a sense, and like realizing.
I don't think it's a wrong. It's just the situation didn't happen for me in that way, and it's that balance, right? Is that some people might have grown up with a parent that it would have been better if they weren't in life. So I don't see it as a wrong. It's just the way it panned out. But I definitely know that's had an impact on my decision. So because of that, maybe I've tried to look after myself, or I've, you know, gone down a more entrepreneurship route rather than employment. I've done certain things that I think if I had a strong male role model in the house or close to me, just wouldn't have done, or I've done differently. Maybe I would have just gone uni and like get a good job, and that would have been it, and started a family younger and done that kind of stuff. But because I've been ultra protective about that, I've been more cautious in my relationship building, you know, the way I interact with my existing family. And I guess, like, you know, the way I think about the world and what I expect of people. Like, I don't expect anything of anyone, really. And it means that I'm rarely disappointed. And it's healthier.
Calibrating the expectations and...
Yeah.
Like you say as well, like, creating your normal, you know, normalizing your normal. Do you know what I mean? This is how it's happened to me, and this is what I expect. Do you know what I'm saying? This is what I'm asking for. This is what I'm shooting for. What I want to do to to kind of wrap it up in a way that I feel like ties in some of the threads that you've been mentioning, is like a question I really like to ask people is, how do you see your quote unquote perfect day or your favorite day going as a routine? Like you're mentioning different projects that you're trying now that you may be trying in the future, and ideas of starting a family and continuing entrepreneurial things and solving problems and collaborations. Like when you're imagining that that excellent day, how does it go when you have control over it?
Well, now like a great day will just be seeing something new, just because I've been walking the same street every day for 500 plus days. And I used to see a lot of new things all the time when I was traveling. So I would say my perfect day now is walking a different street, getting some fresh air. Yeah, just being in another town. I think just being able to change your surroundings was something that I took for granted. I didn't take for granted. I just accepted it as my normal for the time, and now that has completely changed. It's taken a while to adjust to only seeing my small area that I live in. Whereas before, I used to come to Brighton a couple of times a week and be up and down the country. I'd be in different countries in Europe or in Asia, and that would constitute a normal month for me. And then to go from that to staying in East London and in the place that I grew up pretty much all the time, it's like a really harsh adjustment. So now, yeah, perfect days is just a change of scenery, and if I get to work on things or not, I'm happy regardless. Like I'm just as happy working as I am relaxing or not working or not being mentally active.
Yeah, man. I like that. It sounds like the criteria you have for happiness are firm and simple. Firm and simple.
Yeah.
Firm and fair, as my grandma would say. Firm and fair. Yeah, man. Yeah. Dude, honestly, if I can say thank you for your time and for your wisdom today, I'll be a very happy man. I really appreciate you coming on. Really grateful to have this conversation.
You had your brain stirrers. I thought you were gonna. I could just answer like these quickly if you want.
Bro, to be honest, they're for you. They're for you.
Okay.
They're for you. As
I'm looking at them now. I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah. So it's like it's to kind of like a brain stirrer, like something to kind of like get things going, like kick things into gear. I have icebreakers that I ask people from time to time, and I was thinking I might slide some in, and at the same time, it's like as we got into the conversation, I felt like we were talking about really interesting things and getting really engaged in the conversation. So I'm like,
yeah, it's all good.
The way the show goes, it's like I'm reacting to the person that I'm speaking with, and yeah, again, that's another reason why I'm really grateful to have you here. I really appreciate.
Cheers, man.
Really appreciate you bearing yourself, and I don't think you need me to tell you to keep up the good work. I don't think that's helpful. What I can say is like I respect what you're doing, and I really admire it, and I see it, and I find it very inspiring. So, do you know what I mean? Appreciation, G. Appreciation and thanks.
Thank you, man. Respect.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. All right, we'll look it off there. Bless up. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Trust Your Journey. I'm hoping it's fulfilling your soul. I'm hoping it's fortifying your mind and helping you grow, keeping you entertained. Big shout out to our series editor, Ty Harrison, who's been helping me look after this podcast and make it a reality. Hit me up online, hit me up on the socials at Nelson Navarro UK, and let me know how this podcast is helping you, because I'm always up for a chat. For now, have a lovely rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Put a smile on if you can, and I love you. Remember to trust your journey.